Hey, welcome back. This is All Angles. Now, ESKOM Chief Executive Officer Roger Lilly this morning briefed the public on the state of the power utilities system and the current state of load shedding. Jan Oberhozer, the ESKOM COO, says they are trying to keep the lights on, but they cannot afford the costs. After initially refusing, City Power has agreed to implement load shedding to save the national grid from total collapse. And that's a quote from City Power. For more on this, I'm joined now by Roger Lilly, who is an energy sector analyst, to talk through some of these issues. So a key highlight for me, Roger, that comes through from the state of the system update from ESKOM is that since the beginning of this financial year, 2021 into 2022, we've had 29 days of load shedding since the 1st of April, as opposed to, what, 47 for the full financial year last year. Should we be comforted?
No. Good afternoon to Lusizwe. Thank you for inviting me to your show, and good afternoon to all your viewers. No, to Lusizwe, we should not be comforted. We should be very concerned. The statements made regarding the total collapse of the system are very frightening. A total collapse of the South African system would throw the country completely into darkness for probably 2 weeks while the system is being re-established. And so it really is a very serious situation we have in front of us.
So in that context then, what's your sense of the necessity for load shedding? Is it a lesser of the two evils, even though it's not ideal?
Absolutely. I think the easiest way to explain it in a very simplistic form is to say that if you go into a shopping mall or you go into a supermarket with and you go to the cash desk with a trolley full of groceries that you wish to buy, and if the bill comes to 100 Rand, but you only have 90 Rand on you, then some of those items are going to have to be left behind in the shopping stand, in the shopping bag. And so it is with electricity. We have a situation where the load demand is about 30 gigawatts and an availability of about 29 gigawatts. So we've got a whole gigawatt missing. Now that includes not just ESKOM's supply, that's also the independent power producers' supply, which is added. So ESKOM's supply on its own is even lower than that figure. And so this is really very concerning.
But why do we continue to have that shortage, Roger, given that the update shows that we've added some 1,594 megawatts in the last few months, I think from April this year. We are adding, but it just never seems to be enough.
That's right. And the reason for it is because ESKOM's existing power stations are very old and are very unreliable by and large. They have not been adequately maintained, and they are breaking down more and more frequently. And you know, it's a very serious situation, because if a unit in a power station trips, it puts load on the others, and the risk is that they can start tripping as well, which could end up with an entire power station then going offline. Now, when they trip, it's not like when at home, if your earth leakage trips, you simply go back up to the DB board and push the switch back up. That's not the case. When a power station unit trips, there's a problem, and they have to first find the problem before they're able to reconnect it. So it takes time. Maintenance, for example, can take as long as 100 days to maintain properly. So these problems that we have before us are not. There's no quick fixes to them. In fact, I think the best hope that we have for a stable electricity supply in the future is going to be in the private sector. And it's for that reason that we should be very grateful to the South African government for its view of allowing the private generation threshold to be increased from 1 megawatt to 100 megawatts by private organizations and companies, even individuals, without having to go through the pain and complexities of getting a generating license. But there again, even that is a concern, because we know that at various parts of the country, Eskom's network, what they call the grid, is also incapable of accepting power into certain points. And so even if extra generation is available in that point, it might not necessarily benefit the country, although it could benefit a particular local community.
Yeah, two issues that I want to tease out. One is linked to what you were saying just now about independent generation, etc., and linkages with Eskom. What have you made of the noises that we've been hearing from the Johannesburg utilities, City Power, about this 220 megawatts agreement that they've struck with Kelvin Power Station, privately run, that they were saying to people, okay, now that we have this agreement, we don't expect you as residents of Joburg to be affected by stages 1 and stage 2 of load shedding. In fact, going as far as to issue a statement that was the city of Joburg saying that we reject Eskom's latest round of load shedding. Was it just mere grandstanding in that they understood all along that this was never going to have the effect they desire?
Yes, I think there was perhaps a little bit of misunderstanding, perhaps from a technical perspective as well. The reality is that the city of Johannesburg is connected to the grid, and to isolate it in the way that was described is not a simple matter. So yes, the extra power from Kelvin Power Station would help. Personally, I think there are issues surrounding the longevity of the power station at Kelvin. It's due to be closed down in 2026, so we've got 5 years of it, if that. But yes, it all helps. But I think what has to happen is that municipalities have to start generating their own electricity. So similar to what Johannesburg has done, you must understand as well that the power from Kelvin is only about 1/10 of what the city needs. And ideally, it would be great if every municipality could generate an additional bit of power to try and assist the power utility. But the reality is, I think, that because of the way the network is configured, it's not an easy matter just to isolate oneself, particularly as a municipality, completely off the grid and promise your locals no load shedding.
Lastly, Roger, the memorandum of understanding between Eskom and Exxaro and Seriti Resources, some of Eskom's biggest coal suppliers, about going into ventures around renewables. They're talking PV solar projects that they will be exploring and trying to do. The irony therein is this really the beginnings of the penny dropping about this particular issue of the so-called just transition?
Absolutely. This decision by Exxaro and Seriti has nothing to do with load shedding. It has everything to do with decarbonization. At the end of November, towards the end of November, there is another big meeting where the United Nations body regarding the climate change problem will be meeting and discussing the way forward. Countries, including South Africa, agreed to reduce the amount of carbon that is emitted into the atmosphere, and Eskom is one of the biggest contributors to that, not just in South Africa, but indeed in the whole African continent. And for that reason, Eskom is forced, whether it likes to or not, to reduce the amount of carbon it emits into the atmosphere. And so to do that, it's obviously now turned to its coal suppliers and basically saying, we still need energy, but we can't use coal energy, so we need to get something else. And so they'll be going into solar and perhaps wind, I'm not sure. I know that the press release speaks only of solar.
All right, Roger Lilly, thank you so much for your time and your insights here on All Angles. In fact, as Roger Lilly mentions there, part of what the statement talks about is the reduction of carbon emissions by up to 350,000 tons per annum.